Aloha and welcome to our show today, Beyond Foster Care. My name is Delia Ulima, and I am a statewide initiative coordinator for the Hawaii Youth Opportunities Initiative at Epic Ohana. We're the local site for the National Jim Casey Youth Opportunities Initiative, and our mission is to improve the lives of foster children, or youth, young adults as they age out of the foster care system and become adults. Today with me, around the table, we have our guests, Jernani Utab Jr., President of the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board on Oahu, Noi Warchit, Vice President of the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board here on Oahu, and Sassy Lean, the historian of our High Hopes Youth Leadership Board. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, we're so excited to talk story today about what it was like being raised in the foster care system, but we're really going to focus on what it was like to transition out of the foster care system. And of course, you're all the voice, the experience of that because you've experienced it yourself. So let's start off with talking a little bit about the work of the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board.
High Hopes stands for Hawaii Helping Our People Envision Success, and we comprise of current and former foster youth between the ages of 14 through 26. We are a statewide initiative with boards on Oahu, Maui, Kauai, East and West Hawaii. We educate, or the roles of the High Hopes Board is to educate, advocate, and collaborate, as well as provide the youth voice for the Hawaii Youth Opportunities Initiative and the Department of Human Services.
Great. That sounds like a lot of great work. You said educate, advocate, and collaborate as well.
Yes.
Well, you know, I know that you're here today because you've experienced foster care. Let's start with talking a little bit about how long you were in the foster care system here in Hawaii. Noi?
So I spent over 6 years in foster care. I exited foster care at 18 and a half years old.
Over 6 years in foster
Yes.
care. What about you, Jernani?
I spent about 4 years in foster care, entering at 14 and aged out at 18.
My first experience with foster care was when I was 3 years old briefly, and I was returned home to my mother. And then in 2009, I entered foster care, and I exited when I was 18 in 2011.
Okay, so you all have that in common. You all aged out. That's the term that's used, but it means to exit out or emancipate at the age of adulthood in Hawaii. So when you're growing up in foster care or your time in foster care, during your time in foster care, what were some of the toughest challenges?
The toughest challenges for me personally was moving to another neighborhood, moving homes. Moving to a new neighborhood most likely meant switching schools and having to start all over again and make new friends and basically get involved with a new, whole nother community.
So moving.
Moving.
And that's a common theme in the foster care system.
Yes.
You move a lot. Noi, Sassy, what about you?
And in 1 year, I actually moved over 15 placements.
15 placements, so
Yes.
15 different homes.
15 different homes, and it
Wow.
ranged from, Haleiwa to Hawaii Kai to Waipio, Aiea. So I did have to switch schools often as well.
Wow. What about you, Sassy?
For myself, I was fortunate enough to be in one placement. I stayed with my with family. It was my aunt who took me in, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Wow. So it sounds like you've had different experiences in foster care, and I would imagine that every young person's experience is different, but there's some similarities as well. So moving, some people move a lot, move schools a lot. May I ask, were you placed, did any of you have siblings, brothers and sisters, and were you placed with them when you were in foster care?
I had two older siblings while I was in care. There was a period of time when we were placed together, and then there was an incident where we got into a little fight, and then we had to be removed from the home. And then later, we spent several years in care. So throughout that time, we lived with each other only a couple of times because, we were told that it wasn't beneficial for us to be together because we fought. But I mean, I don't know any group of siblings that don't fight. So.
True enough. So when you were separated, were you able to see your siblings often?
No, actually, we really depended on our social worker's aid to pass letters for us. My sister used to draw me cards and color and things like that and send it to the aide if she knew they were going to come and visit me. So that's how we used to communicate.
Jernani, you had siblings. Were you separated from any of them?
Yes, I had one brother. As soon as he entered the foster care system, we were placed together in the same foster home. So that was really beneficial to have him there with me.
What did it feel like when he wasn't there with you, and what did it feel like when you were finally able to live together under the same roof?
When he wasn't there with me, he was placed in a group home in Haleiwa called Koisa, Central Oahu Youth Services Association. And it felt really distant because he lived so far away. And my mother and I would, or our mother and I would visit him every weekend, and that was really tiring. But as soon as he moved in with us, with me in the foster home that we were in, it became much more better. We were much more close, and I got to see him every day and spend a lot of time with him.
Wow.
The separation of siblings is very, very common in foster care. I think it's because not a lot of homes will take a group of 6 siblings. So it's
Really?
really challenging. But one of our recommendations would be when children are placed into foster care and you don't have enough, they can't live together because maybe it's not a co-ed foster home, we would recommend that they at least be in the same district so they can attend the same schools and they can still see each other on a daily basis.
So when siblings are separated, sometimes, as you mentioned, a foster home may not be able to take a group of siblings.
Yes.
But if they are separated, your recommendations are same district, maybe same school, so you can see each other on a daily basis. Great. I think I cannot even imagine what it's like to be raised without your siblings with you. So I'm sure that was challenging. You had mentioned, Sassy, that you had a really supportive and great resource caregiver, or more commonly known as a foster parent.
Yeah.
What are some things that your foster parent did that really helped support you while you're in high school, for example?
She allowed me to continue going to the same high school until I decided that I needed to get out and start over so that I could graduate high school. And she also allowed me to be a teenager. I struggled with having to grow up really quickly as a child, and I didn't have a childhood. And she really let me live like a child again. And it was funny because when I first got my room, she took me shopping to go get sheets and like bedding, and I've never done that before, so the first thing that came to my mind was Cars. Like, I was really into the Cars movie, the animation, and she was like, that's not what teenage girls usually go for. And I'm like, but you said I could live my life as a kid. And although we went back and forth for about 5 minutes in the store, we ended up leaving with what I wanted, and I got Cars bedding, and that made me really happy because she listened to what I had to say.
You know, thank you for sharing that story. You mentioned a couple of things in there that I want to talk about. One is feeling normal, you know, like a normal teenager. What is it about being in the foster care system that makes you not feel like a normal teenager?
Being in the foster care system has a lot of rules and regulations and restrictions. For youth that are in care, they have to ask permission from their social worker whenever they want to go out, hang out with their friends. For youth that are placed in group homes, they need to have a friend approved by the social worker if they want to call them, or if they want to take a stroll down the block, they need permission from the group home as well. So basically, being in foster care has a lot of restrictions compared to those living in the general population with their parents.
I'd just like to add on to what Junani said about the group homes. Some group homes are much more restrictive than foster homes because they have a lot more rules. Like if you want to go walking, like Junani said, you have to earn levels. So sometimes to go walking would be level 4. So that could take about 4 to 5 weeks. And before you can even do that, you have to go through the process of getting it approved by your social worker, which can take a long time. Even to just receive phone calls or make phone calls, you have to go through a process for that too. Your social worker would have to approve who it is, and oftentimes it's not friends. So it's really hard to feel normal because you can't do any of those things like normal teenagers do. They want to call their friend and talk on the phone all day long. You can't do that.
So how did it affect your relationships then? Because, when you're a kid, whether you're in elementary and, of course, middle school or high school, your friends are kind of your thing, right? I mean, you want to hang out with your friends, your brothers and sisters or cousins or what have you. How did it affect your relationships or building relationships with others?
Building a relationship with other was kind of hard because I wanted to go sleep over my friend's house, you know, like normal teenage boys do. But you have to ask permission from your social worker, get that approved, all these liabilities and restrictions. So basically, being a youth in foster care, especially a young male, kind of hinders your ability to be social.
Noi? You'd mentioned having a list, like you'd have to have an approved list, and Sassy you can jump into, of who you could speak to. And it sounds like obviously there's different experiences here because you had a foster parent that really wanted you to get out there and wanted you to feel normal and be social, and you had a little different experience. How do you go ahead then? What are some of your recommendations as a group to improve a young person's ability to have more relationships while they're in foster care so they can feel that support or have people in their lives? What are some things that are important?
Well, there's something called social capital. Social capital are networks of positive and healthy relationships. And when we talk about social capital, we're looking at the quality of these relationships, the quantity of these relationships, and what kind of resources these relationships provide. For example, if a young person has a connection with someone in the community, can they get a job from them? So with social capital, we look at 4 areas in particular, which would be family, peers, community, and school. For me, when I was in foster care, my foster parents and my teachers at school really encouraged me to play volleyball. I loved sports. I loved football, soccer, tennis. I played everything, and I loved it. And there I was able to meet friends. So it was a network I had at school and peers. And I'm still friends with some of them to this day.
Right. So just like my own child or other teenagers, as you mentioned, they're out there, they're playing sports, they're hanging with their friends, and that can be challenging when you're in foster care, especially if there's a lot of restrictions about sleeping over, because that's something that young people do when they have friends or going to overnight hikes or camps, for example. So it sounds like having people in your life that are really supportive and allow you to do those things is really important to building those relationships. So let's talk a little bit about when you age out of the system, when you turn 18, 18 and a half, 19 even, and you leave the foster care system. How does it affect you as a young adult to not have a strong social capital network?
Being in foster care, majority of the people in your social capital circle are professionals, people that are paid to work with you, like your social worker, your guardian ad litem, your therapist, teachers, and whatnot. And when you age out of the foster care system, those people most likely will not be a part of your life anymore. And that's a challenge. But one recommendation is to encourage youth that are in care to get them involved in social capital activities as early as possible so that they can have that lifelong support and network of connections after they age out.
Well, a lot of our young people, they're not fortunate enough to have social capital before they age out, and I have fellow foster brothers and sisters who really struggle. On their 18th birthday, they have to leave the home because they're no longer in the care of the state. So when they leave and they don't have a social capital, they're left homeless. They don't have jobs. They can't enroll in school because they don't have their vital documents. They don't even have the money for it. But with someone, if they had a social capital, someone could lend them the $10 to go and get the birth certificate they need to enroll in school to get a job. So it can be really difficult, and they could feel alone.
Well, I can't imagine my own child turning 18 and not having that support system because, that's what we do as parents. We support them when they go to college, we support them, we're there for them when they their heart gets broken when they get married. But to be on your own, I can't even fathom my child being on their own at 18. You mentioned homelessness. You mentioned not having money or not having a job. Where do young people who age out of foster care, who have limited social capital support, where do they get the support? How can they get support? Is there something that exists? Are there some sorts of programs or other sorts of opportunities for young people?
We're really proud here in Hawaii to say that we have extended voluntary care to 21. And this program is called Imua Kako. This is a voluntary program. And the thing about it is you can opt in and out as much times as you need to. And this program provides monetary support as well as support in terms of services and resources. You'll have a case manager. With the money, you can choose where you want to live. And that will go into effect on July 1st of this year.
And is that something that the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board worked on?
The High Hopes Youth Leadership Board has worked tremendously hard over the past 2 years. Last year it was passed into law, July 1st, 2013, thanks to the great work and the advocacy of the board.
That's amazing. You talk about the advocacy work that you do. Who are some of your partners in the community? Because it takes a team to get this, this kind of excitement, this kind of law passed, this kind of support for young people who age out of foster care. Talk about some of your partners. Who are they?
Well, we have a lot of them. We're so grateful to have the support of the Family Court, the Department of Human Services, especially the director at the Department of Human Services, who's been such a champion of our work. Legislators like Senator Suzanne Chun Oakland, even other nonprofits in the community working with youth aging out or currently in foster care.
Well, it certainly seems like you have a lot of people that you work with, and that this wouldn't be possible without them, without those key partners in the community. Can you talk a little bit more about Imua Kako, Sassy or Dranani, a little bit about the program, who's eligible for it, and what are some of the benefits?
Imua Kako, the most important thing is it's not foster care all over again. The youth can choose where they want to live. It's a chance to receive money, medical support, medical coverage, and support from a case manager who they meet once a month up to age 21. It's basically a great opportunity to have the resources out there for them to be successful adults as they age out of care at 18.
And Sassy, do you think that Imua Kako will really be beneficial for young people who age out of foster care?
Yes, I feel that it's very beneficial because at 18, whether you're in foster care or you're not, no one's really ready to be on their own. I know for myself,
Absolutely.
I wasn't. I had a really hard time going to school and working, and I had to drop out of school because I couldn't afford to go to school and work at the same time. And these 3 extra years that we have in Imua Kako is really going to help motivate us and continue getting that support so that we can be successful.
Well, 3 extra years can make a world of difference. However, even 3 extra years doesn't seem like it's enough in this day and age. We know that our children go to school beyond 21. They still require support, maybe with their first apartment, their first car, with paying for college or even grad school. Is there anything beyond the age of 21? And Imua Kako sounds like a wonderful, wonderful program. And by the way, let's give a shout out for those young people who aged out of foster care, who's over 18, watching this program. Where can they go for more information on how to find out about or sign up for Imua Kako when it starts up in July?
You can get more information online at www.imua21.org. www.imua21.org. Great to know. Now, is there anything beyond the age of 21 or any supports for young people who age out of foster care beyond 21?
Currently, we have a higher ed program. It's through the Department of Human Services. You have to be pursuing post-secondary education to be able to receive the financial benefits of the higher ed program. However, with the higher ed program, we found that only 20% of our young people who age out of foster care actually take advantage of this. Because we understand it's probably because they have children, they have a family to take care of. Maybe they're not ready for school. School is not for them, or other things. Like they moved around a lot probably while in foster care, so they really lack that educational foundation, so they're not ready yet. And that's why Imua Kako is so great. So with I would think the best thing for a young person aging out of foster care to do would be to enter into the Imua Kako program, and then to go into higher ed, because higher ed you can be eligible for 5 years or until you're 27, whichever comes first. So you can bank those, that could probably pay for grad school. So 3 years, you get your associate's degree if you do plan to go to school, and then you get 5 extra years to do what you need to do in school.
Now that sounds like a tremendous opportunity for young people to have that support through Imuokako up to age 21, and to have that support of higher education up to their 27th birthday.
Yes.
What about, so with all of this support, because it sounds like there's stuff out there for young people, particularly for those who pursue post-secondary education, as you mentioned. Does that then result in more people getting their degrees who've aged out of foster care? Do you know the numbers of young people who are able to complete a degree?
Unfortunately, only 3% of foster youth who age out of the system at 18 obtain their bachelor's degree by the age of 25.
3%, you said?
3%.
I'm speechless. That means that 97% of them are not completing a degree.
Yes.
What are some of your thoughts about why that's happening? And hopefully, right, the goal is with programs like Imuokako and support from higher education that there will be more, that number will increase. But what are some reasons you think that young people are not completing their degree? Why 3%?
I think the reality, especially for those who do not have social capital upon aging out, I think the last thing they're worried about is going to school, because they have to find a place to live. They have to find a job to earn an income so that they can eat. So sometimes school is the last thing on their mind when all they're worried about is survival.
And you mentioned earlier young parents, that some young people age out of foster care as parents. Can any of you speak to that?
Sure, I could. By the time I was 19, I had 2 children, 2 beautiful children. But I was very, very, very fortunate to have the support of my resource caregivers or my foster parents. When I aged out of foster care, my daughter was 2 years old. I was a single parent working full-time and 2 jobs and going to school full-time. But my foster parents really helped me take care of my daughter. While I went to work and school, they would take care of her. They took her to school, and they allowed me to stay in their home. So that was an amazing, tremendous help for me.
So they really became your family.
Yes. Oh, I still live with them. I'm 21 now, but I still live with them.
Oh, that's great. Many adults live with their parents. I can assure you of that. What about you, Jernani? Speaking of which, of supportive foster parents, can you talk a little bit about your foster parents? Were they supportive after you aged out of foster care?
My foster parents were definitely supportive when I aged out of foster care. During that period, I was nervous. Turning 18, I didn't know where I would go, where I would live, or what I would do. But my foster mom, she really held through. She looked at me like I was one of her own son, and she took care of me, helped me apply for medical insurance, which is really difficult back then, a tedious form, helping me look for scholarships to help pay for school, charging me feasible amount of rent to pay so I could keep some money for myself as well, and basically providing that love, support, and guidance that every youth that lives with their parents have. And because of that, I was able to still live with her. I still live with her now. That's 7 years, November.
You still live with your foster parents now?
Yes.
Okay, and you pay rent though, right?
And I pay rent.
Okay, good.
Very
good.
cheap. And because I was able to live with her for those 7 years, I was able to graduate with my bachelor's degree last spring, 2013.
All right, that's awesome. I can't make too much noise and clap, but can I give you a pound? All right, awesome. Okay, and Sassy, it sounds like you had a really supportive foster parent. How has that helped you as you've become a young adult?
I was very fortunate to be placed with my aunt. She went beyond everything for me, and I'm really glad that she did, because she kind of saved me from running away and doing all kind of very bad decisions. And although she knew I was still making bad decisions, she stuck by me, and she told me what the consequences are, and she gave me options. And till this day, I still call her for Mother's Day. I still call her on her birthday, even though I don't live with her anymore. I still can call her. I called her last week, I think, to ask her how to make spaghetti. And she was driving, and she was like, I'm driving, but okay, this is what you need. And she told me the list, and I'm just so happy. I can always call her for advice. And if I ever needed a place to stay, she told me that I can always come home.
So having that adult, it sounds like, having
Yeah.
someone who you can turn to, lean to, even one person. And in your case, you're fortunate. So it could be a relative even, an auntie, a grandpa, a grandma. It could be a foster parent who's not biologically related, but to have that love and support, that social capital, as you mentioned, that makes all the difference. Having these wonderful programs out there and opportunities, and because of your voice and your advocacy efforts, it sounds like Hawaii is really coming together to support young people who are aging out of foster care, and that warms my heart. You had mentioned, though, let's talk just a little bit about medical coverage, how difficult it was for you to apply. When young people age out of foster care, is there support? Because young people in the community can stay on their parents' medical coverage up to age 26. What about foster youth?
For youth that are age out of foster care to 18, they are now able to receive medical support until the age of 26. Because we, the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board, felt that if the youth that live with the parents have the option and benefit to stay under their parents' insurance under 26, why not the youth, the foster youth, since the parents are the state?
Sure.
So they basically have extended medical coverage up to age 26.
Great.
Yes.
And more information about that, so MedQuest is who they would go to sign up for medical coverage to age 26. If they age out of foster care, they're eligible to be covered to age 26. Great. Well, you know what? We thank you for being here today on Beyond Foster Care, the voice of experience. The work and the legacy that you're building is tremendous, and I know will affect your foster brothers and sisters for many, many years and generations to come. You're truly an inspiration. Thank you for joining us today. Any last final thoughts or words as we end our show here today? You can just go quickly around the table.
I just want to thank all the key partners, the key stakeholders, the community, Family Court, Department of Human Services, former and current foster youth for helping us build a legacy and helping all this make possible so that there are better supports out there for youth now who age out of the foster care system.
Thank you, Jernani. Any last?
Sure. And for those who are aging out of foster care, don't forget, for more information about Imua Kako, please visit www.imua21.org. And to apply for medical coverage, you can just go to med-quest.us.
Okay. Got 5 seconds for you, my dear.
I just want to thank all the resource caregivers and
Yes.
everyone in our lives that continue to work with us, even though we can be stubborn sometimes.
Yeah.
Keep pushing forward.
Thank you very much. And for more information about the Hawaii Youth Opportunities Initiative and the great works of the High Hopes Board, go to epicohana.org. Aloha and mahalo.